Thank you. Fear of public speaking, number one, more than spiders, snakes, and everything else. Thank you for being here and for being in the room to listen to the talk on sustainability. I stop into a lot of campuses, and sustainability isn't always, let's just say, mano a mano to the print IT group. Sometimes the print IT group is the black sheep of the campus because print plays such a role in waste stream and energy consumption and the like. So hopefully today I'd like to give you, convince you that sustainability isn't going away, and it's not only important in higher ed, it's important also in the corporate space and growing increasingly more so. It's good business. It's not likely to go away anytime soon. And when you walk out of here, hopefully you have some tools that will help you be part of your university's strategic plan for sustainability instead of being the black sheep. Okay, so now everybody's been sitting for a long time, and it wouldn't be like the marketing guy not to say, stand up. I've got a couple of questions for you, so everybody who can stand, please stand. And if you have heard of sustainability on your campus, remain standing. If you know somebody, a colleague, who's actively involved in sustainability initiatives, remain standing. If your school has sustainability, a separate website for sustainability, remain standing. If your school uses stars to report on their sustainability every year, remain standing. And if you're in the list of the Sierra Club's list of cool schools for 2014, remain standing. There's actually 19 of you schools that were registered when I first looked who are actually part of the 2014 listing of cool schools. In fact, I'll kick through a couple of comments first. 68% of you here today actually are members of ASHE, so you belong, you report. That's a lot of you, and some people don't know that. There are multiple levels of reporting. 38% of you are actually ranked in the 2014 listing, the last I looked, as I mentioned, and one school broke the top 10, and unfortunately they're not here right now. But my hat's off to Georgia Tech, who broke the top 10. Also close behind them is the University of San Diego. Is Nell here? Okay, well, in their absence, for you, we have an official Pharaoh screen mug. I always like to give away prizes. So, sustainability. On the corporate side, there's a group called the Global Reporting Initiative, and they are the primary way in which corporations report on their sustainability. So, given that educational groups like yourselves are interested in educational outcomes for your students, right? If you want to know, our corporations, do they care about this stuff? In 2010, I think the number is 19% of the S&P 500 corporations reported on sustainability. In 2013, that number is now 72%. So it's jumped up considerably. I had a chance to find a nice little snippet on the web before I left that said IKEA sold $1.13 billion worth of sustainable products in 2014. And that's pretty amazing, but what was even more amazing is that was 58% more than what they sold last year. So is this going away? I think it's coming in spades. I mentioned ASHE briefly, the Association for Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Ed. 767 members. Those are schools that report. That's comprised of 18 countries that participate in it. So this is not just a U.S. metric. There are 173 associate members. Those are businesses that choose to belong to help the cause and sustainability. And they are the ones that authored the STAR system, which is up to 2.0. So there are several groups here, schools here I mentioned that participate in ASHE. I happen to know a lot about Penn State. They are an ASHE Gold member. There are silver and bronze, and then there's one level below that I think is green if you're just starting to report and starting initiatives. So it's a really big deal on college campuses. And the first piece of advice that I would give you, and I've shared this with a lot of schools that I've visited, is that STARS promotes collaboration between our sustainability office and other departments who provide data. In some cases, these other partnerships grew out of what was initiated by requesting data for STARS. So most schools that I've been to have not considered the ramifications of print because they simply don't have the data. When you think about what you're getting in the presentation from Cal and Bill on Beacon, that data, as you propagate that out through your landscape, is now available. It's sitting in the cloud. We have that data. So I will make a plea at the end for people who are interested in joining us on this, but how can we make your reporting less painful? You would be a hero with your sustainability team. There's a lot of manual work involved in reporting for STARS. So back in October, I spent a couple rainy days in Portland, Oregon, which for those who've been to Portland, that's not terribly unusual. For Portland, I get to see my friends from Washington State saying the same, Seattle, yeah, kind of the same way. They talked a lot about sustainability. You're seeing some artifacts from Penn State's presentations. One woman from Penn State, Lydia Vandenberg, talked about behavior change management tools. How do we get people to understand the ramifications of the choices they're making and do something with it? They use this certificate to reward departments that are doing the right thing, that are helping. They have a certain set of rules for that. But the only thing they really talked about for printers was turn off your printers for the weekend. And by that, I'm assuming they're talking about personal devices, which, of course, is the most expensive form of device. And then Alex Novak, another Penn State speaker, had a very interesting card. If anyone wants to see this, I will have this with me at the Lunch and Learn table. Had a lot of great facts on it, what's going on in Penn State. He was talking about the Penn State Institute for Sustainability was built and formed in 2013. The freshman class, for the first time in 2014, was exposed to sustainability in their incoming freshman orientation for the first time. So, you know, I run into people all the time that say, I thought green was dead. It's just expanded in scope a bit. So at Penn State, they have 400 plus faculty engaged in sustainability research, 300 sustainability-related courses, 88% of students walk, bike, and or bus to and from or on campus, and they have 48 student sustainability organizations. Of course, it's a big place in a lot of campuses, but they have 48 organizations that are run by students to deal with sustainability. So I think it's fair to say, taking a little play from AT&T, sustainability is a thing, and it's here to stay. So you heard it here first. It's a thing. So now it's time to step back into a little bit of Pharos history, just so you know where we've come from. When the University of Auckland first approached our founders, Jeff and Paul, they thought they had a printing problem. And Jeff and Paul challenged them, said, actually, you have a people problem. And you've heard many of us in the past day talk about devices don't print, people do. Behind every mark that's made on paper, there's been a human somewhere down the chain, whether it's programmed or deliberate with pushing a computer key where that print job initiated. So back in 1992, we talk about 22 years of, it's actually closer to 23 now, right about now, of mindful printing. And when I joined Pharos, there was this poster up on the wall outside of one of our conferences, and it said, more than 19 billion pages saved. And what Uniprint used to do, it used to count the pages that were swept out of the queues and page saves, to aggregate those, and it would phone home to the Pharos mothership. And we were counting that number. So this is data from 2006. If I were to think about what has happened since 2006, the number of customers, our blueprint customers that are participating in waste savings now, that number would be staggering. I'm not sure you'd believe me if I had it and could put it up. So, if nothing else, those who have experienced Pharos know that we're all about eliminating wasteful, unnecessary print. So, there's a lot of less print in our history, and it continues to be there, providing you the information that you've seen with Beacon to make actual decisions that you can take action on to drive print down. Now, at last year's conference, I introduced this model. We didn't have the current brand representation, but I said we have something called the new MPS. It's Mindful Print Solutions. And it's not to be confused with Managed Print Services, which is just about devices. We're always looking to look at the documents, and you've seen this again in Beacon. I'll sound like a broken record. What are people printing, and why are they printing? Why is that important? Is it what we would call business essential documents? Or is it a web page or an email or the Final 64 pool, whatever you want them to print, and simply making a decision around what it's going to cost me to print that isn't necessarily being mindful of that decision on the basis of the university. We also spend a lot of time educating users. Last year we showed you what we do some of our corporate customers, the Coke can of water to make one sheet of paper is one of our favorites. You'll see some more of that as we get going in this presentation. So we educate users on the benefits of and the ramifications of printing when they make a choice to print. Here's what it's really costing you and your university, and it's not just dollars. And lastly, making sure your device fleet is the appropriate size for your business essential print. One of the things that occurs to me, and I had this conversation, I think it was with Marcia last night, we were talking about data and Beacon data and what happens when you have information that's now available. It's not really about that we're stopping people from printing with Beacon. All we're doing is we're making that data transparent. So your CIO, your sustainability officer, the deans, eventually when we get some of those login specific views into Beacon, you're letting people see what's going on in their department, and they can ask the question, is this appropriate? We've had one case of installing Beacon and in an alpha situation where we're actually able to see the data coming off, and the motor pool was producing 30% of the color. And so you can ask yourself that question, is that appropriate? I don't know, but at least you get to ask the question, right? So that transparency, once people know that you're looking, that you have this level of detail, you will by definition bring control because they'll have to answer for what they're doing. So we're 8 slides into a presentation on sustainability. We haven't had a definition yet, so I thought now would be the time. And I'll turn to my friends at Penn State. They had a wonderful one on their website, which I shamelessly borrowed. They define it as the simultaneous pursuit of human health and happiness, environmental quality, and economic well-being for current and future generations. And I think it's a pretty good definition. And I think over the years, everybody's had a pretty good grasp of sustainability from the green movement. We've been asked to reduce waste, recycle, reuse, build our buildings more sustainably, buy organic produce, on and on and on. And is that it? Well, actually, no. Back in 1997, actually, John Elkington brought about what's known as the triple bottom line, or people, profit, and planet. And that's what the global reporting institute that I mentioned before is actually using that structure to allow companies to report on their sustainability. So you can see it's not okay to make profit at the expense of the environment. It's not okay to make profit at the expense of people, whether they're employees or vendors or anything else. It's much more of a consideration for how can we do this? It's okay to make profit, but how do we do this in a socially responsible way? So now, I have some exciting news to share. We have an announcement. Pharos has been working very hard when we think about good business and transparency that we're producing. We've been working with some good friends of ours at a company called Socially Good Business. And yesterday I had to step out in the morning session to take a phone call because Pharos is now a certified B Corporation. Thank you. Has anybody heard of B Corporations? No, blank stares. Who's heard of Ben & Jerry's? Yeah, Etsy, pretty much, Patagonia. Those are all certified B Corporations, and what they take responsibility for is understanding their supply chain, making sure that they are being socially responsible in the pursuit of economic profit. So we took a look around at Pharos. We were doing a lot of these things, and it's really cool to be joining over 1,200 companies that are certified B Corps. They represent 38 different countries, 121 industries, all pursuing success or redefining success in business. So what is a B Corp? It's a 56-page document that is literally a different world. It's a different language for me, and that's why Socially Good Business was there to help us out. B Labs is a certifying agency. They're a 501c3 nonprofit. They work on legislation. There are now 27 states with legislation for benefit corporations. So if you were acquired as a benefit corp, the acquiring party couldn't change your social stance or your responsibility and the causes that you supported when you incorporated as a benefit corp. Just some news blurbs off their site, and this is why we did this. B Corp provides what is missing elsewhere or lacking elsewhere, and that's proof from the New York Times, or Inc., the highest standard for socially responsible business. B means better. They talk about the transition between good products going to good companies. There's all kinds of data, if you're interested, on Penn State's site of what they're talking to students, how students make decisions, and what schools to go to. And given a choice, sustainability is a big deal for them. Those are our workforce that are coming. The next workforce, the millennials, are already there. This is the mindset. Given a choice, I will choose sustainable businesses. And oh, by the way, Pharos is the only print management provider, solution provider, that's a certified B Corp. There's nobody else in this space. So we're going to walk the talk. It's really the moment of truth. While there are many changes being made back at our office to our policies so that we're more socially responsible than we're more respectful of the environment, that employees are more engaged in decisions that are being made in the company. We had a choice when we came to FireSky. We came to Scottsdale, Susie and Lindsay did, and we looked around, and this place rang true with us. And when we discovered what they do, Kimpton, as a hotel chain, has made a very conscious effort to the environment and their causes. You notice on the table the wine bottles that are now water glasses. If you're in the men's room, you'll notice things on the wall. I haven't been in the ladies' room, so I can't testify to that. But this was a big deal for us. All of our business cards, all of the printing, the banners that you're seeing, we use another B Corp now to do our printing. Greenerprinter.com is a B Corp that uses water-based, soy-based inks, 100% recycled content paper and the like. Our badge holders that you have are eco-friendly. The plasticizer used to make them as flexible as they are is doesn't contain the normal quotient of carcinogenic chemicals, thankfully. We provided you with reusable water bottles. We didn't want to see plastic, the lightweight plastic stuff that sometimes makes it into the waste stream, sometimes goes into recycling. We didn't want to deal with that, so we gave you a water bottle that way. Anybody name one more thing that they saw Pharos do since they've been here, experience that is in the spirit? Anybody been to the exploration bar? There are bamboo encased jump drives at the exploration bar. Bamboo is a very renewable resource. It grows like a weed. So rather than use wood, we chose this. It does cost us more, but this is part of walking the talk. We will walk this talk. So the question of the hour. Okay, Dale, great, lovely, but we've heard this. How does this help me in my job or help our university? Fair question. Let's turn to some of the work that was done by another Pharos customer, Dartmouth College, and specifically to bullet 3. I think the question of the hour is paper. Can it be reduced? Can we reduce consumption of paper? Our friends at Lexmark paid for a reputable ISO certified group to do a study on paper. And they maintain that based on their work, which was actually verified by a third party, so this isn't Lexmark doing this, this is Lexmark paying somebody who's credible to do this, that's verified by somebody else, and that's sort of the way things work in the sustainability space, is that proof question. So 80% of the carbon footprint associated with printing is a result of paper, and you can quickly see the bulldozers and the trucks and the logs falling and the carbon being used in that whole scenario. So the relevant question back to you all sitting out here is, can you reduce paper? Well, for one of our customers, they don't happen to be here at the conference, but Loyola University in Maryland said absolutely. This is one of their top initiatives. I think they have 3 or 4 in their office of their CIO. They're after reducing paper and, of course, costs. I mean, if you're able to reduce paper significantly, then you can start looking at, okay, now what fleet do I need for that? Behind every device is a whole supply chain of parts and toner and service and IP addresses and wall plugs and everything else that nobody really associates with costs. So if you think about reducing paper, it will be the key to making good partners with your sustainability groups. A lot of colleges today are implementing electronic workflows. You see that a lot in admissions. There's one college in Rochester that just switched over. They don't have any paper transactions whatsoever going through their admissions process. It's all electronic. So making electronic workflow reduces paper, continues to feed that mindset. Okay, so let's explore how Pharos thinks about the enterprise print environment. You've got an enterprise. A university is an enterprise. You have students, and that's what most of you are worried about. We've been talking a lot about back office, so you've got staff, you've got administration. What do we really need to do here? And the first thing, I've got to figure out my initial page volume. What am I actually printing across the enterprise? Obviously, Beacon helps us do that. You guys have seen some great examples of that in the previous talk, so I won't belabor that. The next thing you have to do is you got to figure out, what's my fleet look like? Do I have a small, simple fleet, or do I have hundreds of devices which all have their own supply chain hiding behind them? So what's my fleet look like? And we have yet to walk into any enterprise, whether it's a university or a corporation, that actually doesn't already have some form of excess print capacity. So the next step is setting a total pages target. So go in there and say, let's, maybe it's, if I'm doing 1 million pages a month today, let's just take 10% out. What would it mean to take 10% out and work on that one? Just set a target. Figure out what excess printing capacity you have and start taking the steps. What you're really looking at doing is trying to eliminate that excess printing capacity. You want to simplify your fleet. I can't tell you how much money you're spending on the different makes and models that you're trying to support. And if your job happens to not only be IT, but I've got to keep an eye on the printers, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. What I hope when I take care of simplifying that fleet and driving some of that page volume down, I'm really shooting at that business essential print only, and that's what I was talking about before. Is it appropriate for our school, for our administration, to print web pages, to print email? All those types of wasteful print, there's other ways to do it. The number one document format that I've personally seen in my experience of doing Beacon demos at schools is PDF, right? Portable document format, right? And it gets printed all the time. It's usually nicely designed and somebody wants to print it out. That's just habit. The whole point of PDF is that we can take it places to other devices and look at it and search it and do stuff with it. So I would be surprised if that wasn't the same on your campuses. So when we look at Beacon, if you were going to start against that pyramidal drawing, the first thing I'm going to look at is what's my total volume? It's right there. It's right in center stage. You deploy Beacon, and in less than a couple of weeks, you're going to start to get an idea of my total volume. And then I'm going to say, remember that excess printing capacity that I talked about? Let's look at the utilization. In this particular example, 18.8%, and I know Cal's explained how we figure out what utilization is, so I won't go into that, but that's pretty low. You need to dig into that and click through that and find out, okay, I'm hammering some devices, I've got a whole bunch of devices that aren't used at all. And those are the ones that you can decide with your administration whether I'm going to do anything about that or I'm going to leave them plugged in. I move down and we give you a look based on paper at the sustainability impact alone, and this is where I'm looking for your feedback. You'll see it on my final slide as well, but I'm really interested in working with your sustainability organizations, and I'll be asking people to connect me if you're interested, if you want to be a hero with them, and they want to have a say on what Pharos does in taking this one static card and blowing it into a dashboard. That's what I'll be looking for. Moving along, I go over to my average age. Okay, this particular example, my devices aren't all that old. My employee to device ratio is a little skewed. I probably have too many devices, but I think I knew that from utilization. And then finally, what's my color level? Do I really want my color to be at that percentage? Right? I know Bill was up here talking about color he gets all of his money from printing color. Okay. But at some point, there's a balance between how the university looks at their printing and what they want to be seen and known for, and what we can certainly measure. So there's some other arrows for your quiver I want to give you. Number one, there is just a ton of grant money out there, and this is another good reason to go talk with your sustainability teams. Instead of charging people necessarily for all that print, you could get money in the form of grants from state and federal that are all about reducing my waste stream. If you've got somebody who can write and get a grant, now I can put some money, I can go to a different bank basically than the bank that you normally go to. Some schools are doing a green print queue. I will say Pharos has some technology that we're putting behind this one. We're working on some concepts, and those who, again, want to join us on the sustainability track, we might be able to help in this of how we generate a green print queue, giving students a choice. I know our friends at RICO had an announcement with tree frog paper. It's paper that's made from sugarcane agro waste. And that paper is extremely low carbon offset because it's waste. They would normally burn it. So the fact that you're not burning it and contributing to the waste of that energy, you're turning it into paper. And RICO has certified the use of tree frog on all of their devices. So I have that press release. I have information, again, with me on tree frog paper. There's 2 other vendors in the same boat. I'd be happy to share that with you. You just catch me anytime after the talk. And lastly, we were here last year, and I was up here and I was saying similar things. We were starting down this path, and I think it was Keisha from Kansas State who said, okay, I like this behavior management stuff. You're showing me these cool things that you did with Coke, but frankly, I'm in IT. I don't have time, nor the skills to actually help with this behavior change management stuff. So, okay, we heard you. We have some samples, and we shamelessly use Notre Dame in this example. So if they're interested in these posters, they can have the files carte blanche right here. But some of these numbers are pretty staggering. 40% of the waste in the United States is paper. And there's references on all this data that I can share. 750 million people don't have access to clean water, but it takes 13 ounces of clean water to make one sheet of paper. And one sheet of paper, the energy consumed, just making that sheet of paper can power your house for 15 minutes. So the next time that students or staff, they look at stuff like this, they decide, do I really need to print that? Am I being pummeled with this in my university anyway? This is a way to, again, drive print volumes down. Paper that follows that, cost follows that, simplicity follows all of those. So the last thing is to get involved. If you're doing anything on a green print queue, you're doing anything green with printing, please share it. That's what the community is for. Let everyone benefit from that. We'll pour gas on that fire. If you start sharing those things, we'll add to it. That's something that's near and dear to our hearts. We also have a list I'm really interested in getting. If you want to be a hero with your sustainability group and they want to play in helping us shape that future, email us at sustainability@pharos.com.